Welcome back, everybody. This episode of the podcast is sponsored by Delta Leaf Labs. When you're growing your own cannabis, you can find out the sex of your plant 4 times faster when you use the plant DNA sex testing kit from Delta Leaf Labs. They make it really easy to take a sample from your plant. Then you send that into the lab, and a couple of days after they get it, you'll know whether you've got a male or a female plant to work with. So go over to deltaleaflabs.com and order your testing kits today, and at checkout, use promo code IMGS10 for 10% off of that order. Alright, now let's get started. Well, brothers and sisters, how's everyone doing today? This is the In My Grow Show, the podcast dedicated to taking the mystery out of cannabis. I'm your host, Alex, and I want to welcome you to episode number 62. Last week was Mother's Day. I hope everybody got their loving mother something nice, or at least got them something they deserved. And I want to take a moment to say Happy Mother's Day from everyone here at the show, which today is just me and Dante. Alright, what else? Also, I sprouted more seeds last week also. Let's see, I cracked 3 Space Force and about 5 of the cool ones. Yeah, so that's going to be fun. The little cotyledon leaves are just coming up. The cotyledons are the little round leaves, the first leaves that push out. And they're just coming up. I'm going to give them a couple of more weeks before I take the samples to send off to Delta Leaf Labs. I'm going to send those over to them and see what my results are. I'm going to hang on to them and just to give you an idea of how accurate that test is over there. And when I do that, I'll make a video of it because there is a process to it. And then I'll put that video up on the YouTube channel. Speaking of the YouTube channel, last week I went ahead and uploaded almost all 62 episodes of the show. I say almost because there were like 3 or 4 of them that I couldn't get loaded on there. It seems like if they were longer than an hour and 20 minutes, YouTube wasn't letting me put them up. I don't know what the deal is. Couldn't figure it out, so that's why I say almost. But go over there and check it out. Look for the In My Grow Show on YouTube. So last Sunday, I went to a puff and paint, which is, think of it this way. Have you ever seen those places where they let you drink wine and somebody helps you paint a portrait, a landscape, or a bowl of fruit or something? Very similar to that, except we're replacing the wine with cannabis. It was a great time, though. It was put on by the Happy Trees Art Class 805. And that is put together by these 2 very cool young women, Diane and Cheyenne. And basically you pay $20 and you get a pre-roll, you get an edible, and the art supplies that you need to paint a picture. And they bring in some really cool graffiti artists to be the ones to give the class. This time the artist was a guy by the name of John, and you can find him on Instagram to see some of his stuff at Ain't Hard to Tell. And if you go to my Instagram page at In My Grow, you can see what I painted, which was a heart that had some blisters on it and like stitched down the middle, some stitches. It was pretty cool. I had never done anything like this before. I had a great fucking time. Somebody asked me if you're allowed to take your own cannabis there to smoke and enjoy. The answer to that is yes, you are. A lot of people brought their own stuff. There were plenty of bowls and blunts being passed around. It was a really great time. It was held at a private residence, somebody's house. I met the guy, really, really cool guy, man. This guy named Juan. But I was talking to him for a while. Now they have another art class coming up on May 26th. That is next Sunday. You can find out details on Instagram at Happy Tree Art Class 805. You can connect with the ladies there, and they'll give you all the details on how to buy tickets. It's a really good time. I had a fun time. I'm going to do it again. I don't think I'm going to do this Sunday coming up, but I am definitely going to be doing it again. You, on the other hand, I think it's something you should try, because I think it's something you would like. It's something that it seems like you'd really get a kick out of. And I want to talk a little bit about the last episode. I had some sound issues at the beginning with the interview that I had with Dr. Felice over the phone, which isn't that surprising because for the last 2 months, maybe 2.5 months, I've been trying to find a good way to record phone interviews. I used to be able to do it really simply on my phone, on my cell phone. I have a Galaxy S9, but then it got an update. And after that, it wasn't allowed to record any phone calls because of privacy issues in California. So I've been on this journey to find the best way to record phone interviews. And I think now I have it figured out. I hope I do anyways. Only time will tell. I thought I had it figured out last time. But I did a little correcting and I was able to fix the audio a little better. The only problem that's still there is that for whatever reason, Stitcher doesn't have the updated audio file on it. So it still sounds unbalanced. If you listen to that episode of the show through headphones, one part of the conversation will come in through the right side and the other side will come in through the left side. And it just sounds weird. But if you link to the episode from the website, if you go to inmygrow.com and link from there on episode 61, it sounds a lot better. And I appreciate everybody who gave me feedback on that episode as far as that the sound quality wasn't there, that I needed to do something. And I also appreciate everybody being really patient with me because it's still a learning process for me. And while I'm on it, I do want to thank my buddy Ray for helping me figure out these sound issues that I've got. Also, later on, I'm going to play a conversation that I recorded with Dr. Elin, who is a veterinary doctor. But that's a little bit later. First, I want to do the strain of the week. Today, I've got 2 reviews. The first one is going to be for Jack the Ripper, or Jack the Ripper, which was made by crossing Jack's Cleaner and the male version of the Space Queen, which is known as the Space Dude. This flower is a nice, heavy-hitting flower. Really lemony, really like floral scented, you know. It smells earthy a little bit also, like wet dirt. When I say earthy, it's like pine cones and wet dirt. To me anyways. But it's a great smoke to party with. You will feel high when you smoke this. So for that next corporate event, go out and buy everybody joints of the Jack the Ripper. Alright. The other one I want to talk about is the Guava Kush. The Guava Kush is also another very fruity flower. You know me, I love fruity flowers. A very sweet smell too. Now, it's not such a heavy hitter like the Jack the Ripper is. It seems to be an okay high for the midday session, you know. I found myself going easy into the high and then kind of, fading easy out of the high. I wasn't like slammed into highness like the way I was with the Jack the Ripper. This one was nice and smooth. So the Guava Kush is really good for smoking right after that power lunch, right before you go back to the office. Have a little bit of Guava Kush. It'll give that nice softness to the rest of the day. You know, that nice velvety feeling? It'll be like that. Oh, it feels nice. But there you go, man. Jack the Ripper and the Guava Kush. Strains of the week. Now I want to give a quick thank you and a shout out to Caroline over at Dynagrow. I've been communicating back and forth with her on social media, and she was nice enough to send me the Dynagrow Home Starter Kit, which is a complete line of nutrients and silica for plants. I thought that was very cool. If you go over to my Instagram feed, you can see what that kit has. And I'm going to start using that in a couple of weeks. My seedlings are still really small, real tender. I'm going to give them a few weeks to get stronger, and then we're going to start with the silica and see how that works. Now, let's hear a little bit of the report from the cannabis front line. And I want to start in Vegas. I got this off of the Marijuana Business Daily website. And the headline reads, Las Vegas City Council signs off on rules for cannabis social venues. It starts off, the Las Vegas City Council voted 4-1 Wednesday to create a new business license and land use regulation for marijuana social venues. A move that could open new business opportunities for entrepreneurs and increase revenue for licensed cannabis retailers. In the first 12 months, only existing owners of marijuana retail licenses can apply for a social use permit where customers could consume cannabis products. After the first year, anyone is welcome to apply. A couple of details about what will and will not be allowed. Let's see. It prohibits venue owners from selling, providing, or distributing marijuana or marijuana products such as flowers, concentrates, or infused products. What? Oh, so they can't sell anything. You can use your own stuff there, but they can't really sell you any marijuana products? But I guess that ain't too bad because it seems like some of the first venues are going to be connected to dispensaries. At least that's what it sounds like. All right, let's keep reading. The next one's does not allow social use venues to be located within 1,000 feet of schools or non-restricted gaming facilities. Okay, that's just how far they can be from certain places. Go down. Goes on to say allows licensees to sell or provide marijuana paraphernalia such as vaporizers or rolling papers. So they can't sell you anything to smoke, but they can sell you things to smoke with. Okay. It would also require applicants to submit plans for security, employee training, air quality, fire safety, and odor control. And it would require licensees to pay a $5,000 annual fee. Well, you know what? God bless Vegas and for what they're doing with cannabis. Next, I want to talk about California because the laws and regulations around here seem to be moving pretty fluidly. And I don't mean that they're moving easily. I mean that there's a lot of changes going on. Because the cannabis industry is trying to get the state government to lower taxes on legal cannabis. Look, I supported to legalize both medical and recreational cannabis because I truly do believe that a well-regulated cannabis market is a positive thing. Sadly, though, the high price of those regulations means that the cannabis products that are sold in dispensaries are pretty expensive. I mean, especially if you compare them to the black market. You know, that's one of the main reasons why the black market is so strong still here in California. I say it's one of them. It's not the main one. There's a few other reasons. Another one of those reasons why the black market is so strong out here is because even though a majority of people living in California voted to legalize it, in one of the provisions in Proposition 64, we allowed local governments to choose whether they wanted to allow cannabis businesses to be in their town. And a lot of those towns voted against it, voted against letting legal weed set up shop there, which is a mistake. It's one of those unintended consequences of what Proposition 64 was supposed to do. Because even though weed is legal in California, there aren't legal places to buy it in every town. So that means that in those towns where there are no legal shops or legal delivery places, the black market has free reign. Because those adults still want to get their cannabis, they still want to spend the money, but they don't have anywhere legally to do that. So they turn to the black market, and the black market gets a foothold. You know, so finding that balance, that's the hard part here. If you're in a state where you're talking about legalization, pay really close attention because the devil seems to be in the details. The Ojai City Council actually just had a meeting this past week about putting more taxes on the cannabis dispensaries up here in this town. I mean, I know the solution's there. We just have to find it. So, yeah, we'll see how that works out. And that is a report from the Cannabis Frontline. Now, as I said earlier, next I'm going to play a conversation that I had with Dr. Eileen Gillen, who is a veterinary doctor, and I was really excited to have her on the show because I've been wanting to start this conversation about cannabis and our pets, but I wanted to start it with a veterinarian on the show just to get that professional kind of insight about what's actually going on with our pets and with cannabis. So I was really grateful when Dr. Gillen said she'd come on the show. And I met her at the 805 Cannabis Society networking event a few weeks ago. So hang tight, I'm going to play a little bit of music and then I'm going to put that on for you. Well, everyone, I'm real excited to have with me and real lucky to have with me today Dr. Eileen Gillen. She is a doctor of veterinary medicine. Doctor, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Alex. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
That's not a problem. I've been wanting to get a veterinarian on the show for a long time. It's been really hard to find someone, to find a professional who would want to talk about cannabis and CBD and THC and our pets. So, I appreciate you taking the time. One of my biggest questions about veterinarians and when it comes to cannabis is the hesitation. They almost get upset when you bring up either cannabis or CBD to them for their pets. Is that because they don't know anything or they can't really prescribe anything?
I think it's a combination of both because there is definitely a lack of empirical knowledge of the use of cannabis in the veterinary medical industry. I think the last time veterinarians truly used full spectrum cannabis, I think was at the turn of the century. And that was before, I think, Congress criminalized the use of cannabis, because it was used, at that time, it was more rudimentary type use, and veterinarians were not as, I don't want to say hyper specialized, but we're more specialized today. So there's either small animal veterinarians, there's exotic veterinarians, there's veterinarians that focus specifically on equine, or veterinarians that focus on the food animal industry. So at the time, it was more of
equine being horses.
Horses,
okay,
yes, and actually, cannabis was heavily used in horses for managing issues like colic, and they also made liniments that were topically applied for joints for carriage horses, for managing lameness and soreness and injuries. But I think it was the American Pharmacopoeia had petitioned Congress to continue including cannabis as part of their medical therapies. But once it was banned from this country, it just, we stopped using it, and we haven't used it for, well over 50 or 60 years. And I think there's more of an interest with veterinarians that are more open-minded about alternative therapies, or using a combination of Eastern therapy, like Chinese herbs, acupuncture, and then blending it with Western therapies. But in all honesty, there are very few veterinarians that know enough about it, that want to use it. And also the fact that it's until it's decriminalized, they're not going to want to prescribe it on an irregular basis.
Now, is that because they don't want to send their patients out into the streets looking for something that's federally illegal?
Yes, that's true. And also the fact that veterinarians heavily rely on evidence-based research. So they want large-scale studies to definitively prove that cannabis can and is and will be effective for use in their patients.
But see, that's what I don't get, though, because a lot of the studies that are out there on cannabis and in most conditions are animal studies. So yeah, that's also why I don't understand. I mean, I get the federal part. Okay, it's illegal, and they.
And I think part of that issue is that they're animal studies as they pertain to human medicine, but they want to see actual definitive research-backed studies for the benefit of veterinary patients. So they want to see statistically significant studies for dogs, which I actually have 2 articles here. So we're getting there. I mean, it's starting. There is definitely the interest has been generated. So there are teaching hospitals that are now looking at the benefits of not necessarily full spectrum cannabis, but the use of CBD, cannabidiol, for the use of managing arthritis in dogs and also seizures in dogs. So we have a long way to go, but also the other issue too is getting the funding to support those kinds of research projects, because it costs a lot of money, and they need a lot of dogs, they need a lot of horses, they need a lot of cats. They need the benefit of on the human side is that they have the funding, they have they've got the support to do statistically significant studies with a large number of people to come back and say, here's our evidence to say that this can help with this particular condition. So we don't have that yet in veterinary medicine, but I think someday we'll get there.
So the funding is an interesting question, because a lot of the research, I assume, is coming from pharmaceutical companies.
Mm-hmm.
So it just seems, that funding would kind of be tied up, because does the pharmaceutical companies want these studies to be done?
I would think so, because aren't they the ones that stand to benefit? I mean, Big Pharma is always going to be the ones that stand to benefit. The other issue is that cannabis is still, veterinarians, we are agents of the DEA because we use controlled drugs in our daily practice. We use opiates to manage pain. We use anticonvulsants, to help manage seizures, and we use sedatives in order to work on patients. So we use controlled drugs, Schedule 1, Schedule 2 drugs. Not Schedule 1, but Schedule 2, and I think it's 4. Mostly Schedule 2 drugs, which are, opiates and ketamine and drugs like that. So we can be, held accountable by the DEA. So there is that reluctance too, because cannabis is still Schedule 1,
Sure.
So we could technically, I suppose, lose your license. And I can't imagine a DEA agent chasing down a veterinarian like me, but I suppose they could, But,
for CBD or for cannabis? Or?
For cannabis. So there's that hesitancy there.
Sure.
The fact that it is still, it's still illegal at the federal level. And until that becomes unwound at the federal level, I think it's always going to be a gray zone with veterinarians. I have worked with veterinarians who literally lock up cannabis in their drug box and they'll use it, they'll use it for their patients, as needed. They're very brave, and they're probably outliers.
On the education side for the veterinarians, where are those outliers getting their education from?
I think it's mostly self-education. So I need to clarify, full spectrum cannabis, dogs getting into, their owners' medicinals or, their edibles can be an issue because cannabis can be toxic to pets. I think tightly controlled use of cannabis in veterinary patients is a brilliant idea. But we do see, especially dogs that get into their owner's stash or they get into their hash oil or especially their cookies or their fudge brownies or whatever. And they come in and they're profoundly, somewhat semi-comatose. And that can be dangerous because it can... I think there was one report of a dog that died of respiratory failure. So it can be an issue. It's not completely benign to just, feed veterinary patients cannabis. It has to be, I think, used judiciously.
So on that topic, as far as, our pets getting into our flour or our hash oil, all animals with the spinal cord have an endocannabinoid system, right? Mm-hmm. But I assume just by what you said, it doesn't mirror human endocannabinoid system as far as how
there are differences. Dogs in particular are much, much more sensitive to THC, the levels of THC than primates and humans are. So it doesn't take a whole lot to actually impact them.
Now, is that because they have more receptors?
They do. They have many more receptors than humans and primates. And they're largely located in the part of the brain called the cerebellum. So if they do get into too much of it, they'll present to a veterinarian with what's called static ataxia, where they're unbalanced and falling around.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk to you about that because that happened to my dog one time. We accidentally hotboxed him, and he's a little, poodle mix. But is it possible to have those same symptoms of what did you call the unbalancing?
It's called static ataxia.
Is that also a symptom of a seizure disorder?
Not that I'm aware of, because it's pretty unique to what we see in dogs. It's ataxia is a neurologic term for a weakness or imbalance. Oh. So, usually they'll come in and they're staggering around because their cerebellum is impacted, and the cerebellum is responsible for fine motor control. Oh. So, your ability to just lift your hand to your nose, part of that is controlled by the cerebellum, and if if we were a dog and we could lift our paw to our nose, it would be shaky and imbalanced and we would fall over.
Right. So, yeah. That's what was happening. So
it may look like a seizure, I guess. And some people are worried that that's what's going on. And, in most cases of mild toxicity, it's not a big deal. It's just the ones that we tend to worry about are the dogs that have got into a significant enough amount that they're really clinically depressed.
So then it can affect dogs' respiratory system?
It can definitely impact their respiratory system. It can diminish their respiratory system. And, part of that is driven by the brainstem itself. So we do want to be careful with those patients, and actually, we do treat them for toxicity associated with that.
So it's got to be really difficult to dose an animal with THC anyway.
It is. And, to date, there is, as far as I know, no real ongoing research in veterinary medicine for use of, full spectrum cannabis, to manage pets and their conditions. That's not to say that, because there's a mountain of anecdotal evidence that does indicate that it can help with pets undergoing chemotherapy to manage their nausea. It can help with arthritis. I mean, I use full spectrum cannabis oil for my dog's hot spots, and it works.
Topically?
Topically.
Oh, okay.
Topically.
Okay.
And we do have, part of...
now, wait, before we go further, a hot spot is just when a dog is...
They get allergic reactions, so some part of their body will get itchy, and they'll continue to scratch at it or lick at it, and it gets red and angry and inflamed and infected.
Okay.
So that's what a hot spot is, and usually it's related to seasonal allergies.
Oh, all right.
Or flea bites. So they get flea bite sensitivity.
So now, since staying on the topic of the dogs, since their endocannabinoid system is different, is CBD still non-intoxicating to dogs?
It is. We don't see the toxicity associated with the THC component. So THC dogs, I think veterinary patients in general are much more sensitive to, but they can't get high on cannabidiol. There's no evidence to date that we can see toxicity associated with CBD. Now, I pulled 2 studies here related to using CBD. The pharmacokinetics of cannabidiol by 3 delivery methods at 2 different dosages to healthy dogs. And the gist of the study is that the consensus is that it was safe. They did notice, what they did is they also pulled blood work, and they looked at liver and kidney values too during the course of administration. And they did see an elevation in liver enzymes. But when they came back and rechecked, I think it was several weeks later, those values came back to normal. So it remains to be seen, what the impact of that is, because the dogs clinically were healthy and they didn't see any, untoward side effects associated with using CBD in dogs. And that was for managing arthritis in dogs.
So now, what about cats?
Cats, I think, do great on CBD. And you know what? I did see a cat that got into his owner's stash. And that kitty came in, he was just sleepy. But, he was an older kitty, and the owner mentioned that he had arthritis, and he thought the cat did great for a few days afterwards after he got into his stash.
I bet.
Cats are not dogs.
Right.
They're very different
dogs
species.
Are not people, yeah.
And for better or for worse, in veterinary medicine, I think cats get the short end of the stick. People are, unless they're very committed cat owners or what we call crazy cat people, mm-hmm. And I mean that, in
a loving way.
Yes, I don't mean that in a negative way, because I love crazy cat people.
I know quite a few crazy cat people in my world.
As far as I know, there's no research on use of CBD in cats. Although, anecdotally, they do well for managing conditions like arthritis and, again, inappetence for cats, too. So I've used, and we have a tincture, and I've used CBD tinctures in cats and seen positive results as well.
And the CBD works the same, similarly as far as it helps inflammation and
it helps,
and
it does. So we see the same benefit in cats that we do in dogs.
Wow. And now, talking about tinctures, there's something I want to mention, and that's that a lot of tinctures of CBD for humans have essential oils in them. Mm-hmm. And that's for, taste and odor, because just raw cannabis oil.
It tastes terrible.
Tastes wrong. But those tinctures aren't safe for animals, though. Is that right?
They're, depending on what they're made with. Our tinctures are made with, we use Well, we're using grapeseed oil, but we're going to move to, I think, hemp seed oil is the carrier oil. But they'll use essential oils, which can be a problem for dogs and cats. And there are some, essential oils that they're toxic. Some of them, I think some people use, is it spearmint oil or peppermint oil? And they can cause some GI upset. So you can see vomiting and diarrhea associated with that in dogs and cats. So when we were, our products are always a work in progress because I guess I'm eternally curious about how we can make it better and improve on it. So we're always getting feedback from, the people the customers that are using our products. But my goal is if I can get a cat to take something by mouth so that their owner is not running around the house in the morning, trying to get kids out the door and they're trying to get ready for work. And then here's their cat, that they need to, they want to give their cat CBD. So we hit on hemp seed oil because it seems to be the most odorless and tasteless, and it is safe. So we did our homework. So a sidebar, grapes are toxic to dogs. So don't give your dogs grapes.
And raisins.
Grapes and raisins and currants. But grapeseed oil is safe. So we've been using that as our carrier oil. But I'm also a fan of hemp seed oil because of the benefits of hemp seed oil. Hemp seed oil itself it's got the perfect balance of omega-3, 6 fatty acids. So we're probably going to transition our tinctures to hemp oil.
Now, when you say your tinctures, that's because you have a line of tinctures. Well, a line of pet products, correct?
Yes.
And the name of that is Botanical Veterinary Products?
Yes. The company is called Botanical Veterinary Products, and then our treats are Hemp Plus. So we have treats for joint, anxiety, and skin. So they contain hemp seed oil, and then each SKU or line of those treats contains additional therapies for joint, skin, or anxiety.
I need one for skin for my dog. He has itchy spots.
I will have to bring you some. And also the tinctures too. So the tinctures are full CBD, and we sell the tinctures online. And hopefully, we can start selling them over the counter.
So, speaking of the CBD tinctures, when you dose a dog, let's say my dog's 11 pounds. Mm-hmm. How am I dosing that dog for CBD?
So, in the research, the studies that they have done, and these studies were done at Colorado State Veterinary Teaching Hospital and Cornell Veterinary Teaching Hospital. So their doses were, and again, they were pulling from anecdotal studies. So their doses were anywhere from 0.25 mg per kg to 2 mg per kg. I tend to start out...
That's 2 milligrams per kilogram,
2 milligrams per
2.2
kilogram.
pounds.
Right, exactly. Okay. So if, most people can hopefully most people can do the math. That can get kind of confusing when you're...
We all have calculators on our phones.
Exactly.
There's no excuse.
So I tend to start low and then I titrate up. So, most of my customers, I'll have them start at 0.25 to 0.5 milligrams per kilogram and then titrate up. And then I encourage them to use it long term because, I think that especially being Americans, we tend to be impatient and we want to see results right away. And we're too used to watching Hollywood movies where, you give them that epinephrine injection and all of a sudden they wake up. It doesn't work that way.
On TV they wrap it up in half an hour.
They do. They do. We wrap it up in, weeks. So we have to be patient and you got to, show up and do the things every day. So you've got to be there and give it to your dog or cat twice a day and continue on. And I think that you will see the beneficial results associated with it.
Now, earlier we were talking about how hard it is to get, that you have getting your products because it's illegal or?
So it's been definitely a learning curve. When we went to get a bank account, I couldn't tell them that we were using hemp products because this was before 2018, before the Farm Bill legislation passed, decriminalizing hemp. Mm-hmm. But that's still an issue. So with our online products, we were flagged by PayPal, so we lost our account, and they kept our money for 6 months, and they only I think it was only a few weeks ago that they finally gave us, our money back. So
oh wow,
that left us floundering around, trying to find a merchant account. And there are merchant accounts that will work with cannabis and hemp companies, but we're all considered high risk. Why that is, I don't know. So, their interest rates are an arm and a leg, and we're just a little startup company right now. So again, when we sat down and did the math and realized if we went with these merchant account services, we would barely break even. So we finally hit on electronic checking for the time being. Since hemp was decriminalized with revisions of the Farm Act, or the Farm Bill, I think is what it's called, for 2018, they've decriminalized hemp, but the problem is it hasn't trickled down to
filtered down to local states
and local municipalities. So the banks are still, I think, highly, highly confused about the difference between hemp and full cannabis plants. So that's an ongoing issue right now, because I think Avalon was a merchant or a banking merchant account company that was working with a lot of hemp CBD companies. They got shut down, so it's left all of these hemp CBD companies running around looking for new merchant account services so they can continue manufacturing and selling their products.
Yeah, I just find that surprising. I thought the Farm Bill was supposed to make it easier, if anything,
It is at the top level, but it's still, I think it's going to take years maybe to finally, because it's all tangled at the federal level, and there's still so much misunderstanding between the difference between hemp and marijuana. People think that you can get high on hemp, and there's so many different uses of hemp too. Hemp you can extract hemp and you can use the CBD associated with hemp and the hemp oil. But there's also there's the fiber, you can build stuff with hemp, you can make clothes with hemp. The other things that we're thinking about, with our products is, we can make leashes and collars, and the fact that it's much more environmentally friendly and it uses far less water than, traditional fiber like cotton.
So if you do make, or when you do make hemp chew toys, is it more likely that my dog's going to be able to digest that little bit that he chewed off?
So that's one of my long-term goals, is to design or develop, chew toys that are, potentially digestible for dogs, so that they don't come in to me at 3:00 in the morning because they can't pass something because they've ingested it.
Hey, so that's an interesting question that I wanted to ask you about. Does the hospital that you work for now know? Do you prescribe hemp to your
No,
CBD?
because that's a conflict of interest. So I have, private clients and private customers that I work with. So I don't advertise my business here, at work. Number one, it's intellectual property, and number two, I think it's a conflict of interest. So I don't want to. This is my company and my business, right, and my intellectual property. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to blend that with working for another company. So I have private clients and customers that I see through this for specifically obtaining.
Because you were saying you work at the emergency hospital, so you don't really do any actual, I guess, patient care as far as a history of patients, you see people regularly?
I do.
But here at the hospital?
Well, no, I don't see people. I'm an emergency doctor, right, so I see what comes through the door. I do have, clients from time to time that inquire about using cannabis and hemp, and I will educate them, and then I can refer them. So that's another sidebar. So in the veterinary industry, at least in the state of California, I know this sounds silly, but this is how long it takes things to untangle themselves. It is now officially legal for veterinarians to discuss the use of cannabis in their patients and pets with clients.
Wait, before it was illegal to discuss it?
It was illegal to discuss it.
You couldn't even talk about it?
We couldn't even talk about it. So now they've actually passed legislation so we can have open, honest conversations with our clients.
So you couldn't talk about it in a positive way or at all, even in a negative way, or just...
I think it was sort of... and this is all esoteric, so...
That's fine.
You could talk about it, but technically it was illegal.
Wow.
So, because it's Schedule 1, and it's...
You couldn't even have at least professionally in your office, you couldn't even have that conversation with us.
Yes, so now you can have that conversation. So...
Huh.
Kind of silly, I know, but you can have the conversation.
Well, I never
now.
realized that's how deep the restriction was for you guys.
Mm-hmm. It's far worse, I think, for veterinarians than it is for human physicians, I think.
I wonder why that. Yeah, but even in the human world, I mean, at least a lot of doctors seem to be getting more educated.
Right.
And that's mostly because their patients can talk and ask about.
Mm-hmm. And what we're relying on is much more rudimentary, is how our non-speaking patients respond to treatment. So we're relying heavily on our pet owners, to give us that kind of feedback.
Well, yeah, because that feedback, I assume, comes in the form of the dog before, let's say, couldn't walk 6 blocks, but now that they have some form of cannabis on board, they can, walk those 6 blocks.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Oh, that's got to be hard, yeah. No kidding. So, do me a favor, doctor. Can you tell people where they can find your Hemp Plus products?
So we are online, and we are officially going to be able to hopefully take e-checks either by the end of next week or the following week. So our website is called www.botanicalveterinaryproducts.com.
All right. Are you guys on social media at all?
Yes, we are. You can follow us on Instagram. And I also have a blog if you're interested too. We have a blog on the website, and I also have a blog called Pets and Their Vets.
Oh,
Pets and Their Vet.
All right.
So it's an old blog, and I've resurrected it because I've determined that I'm going to find the time to actually educate people just about, pet health issues in general. I think it's important. Veterinarians are kind of bashful folk, I think. We tend to be introverts, and I think that our days are just so filled with appointments and just, trying to get through one patient at a time. I think veterinarians are pretty good at talking to each other about pet health issues, but I think more and more veterinarians need to take more responsibility about reaching our target market, which is our pet owning and pet loving clients. And I think if we can spend more time educating them about health issues, then they don't need to see me at 3:00 in the morning, even though we're always going to be there to see you at 3:00 in the morning when there are definitely issues where we need to see you at that time of the night. I think educating you about other things or, preventative medicine so that you don't need to be awake in the middle of the night coming in to see me. Make sense?
Yeah, you're just trying to answer those you're just trying to answer those basic questions before they come in.
Right.
Got it.
And just answer or just, help with, I'm sure there's a million things that people have questions about, so I'm happy to answer questions, and feel free to email me. My email is Eileen@botanicalveterinaryproducts.com.
Well, Dr. Gilman, Eileen, thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate it. Everybody else, I'm going to play some music, and I will be back. Well, everyone, that was Dr. Eileen Gillen. Again, I want to thank the doc for taking the time and being brave enough to come on the show. I appreciate the hell out of that. If you have any questions or comments about this episode, you can send an email to inmygrow@gmail.com, or you can find us on Instagram @inmygrow. And remember, if this episode has educated you, entertained you, or even given you a little escape from your day, go to patreon.com/inmygrowshow and leave a donation. Now, those funds help me put the show on. They help me pay for different hosting fees and equipment. So like I said, if you can afford it, go over there, throw a couple bucks our way. If you don't want to leave a donation, you can go to inmygrow.com, click on the Support the Show tab, go over there and you can buy a t-shirt. Or even easier, before you go shopping on Amazon, click on the Amazon link in the show notes of this episode so they know that we sent you and we get a commission. Now, if you can't support the show financially, don't worry about it. I get it. Here's how you can help. Subscribe to the website, subscribe to the podcast, and then tell 3 other people about the show. Really simple, really easy. Now, if you're a cannabis company that wants to advertise to our worldwide audience, also send an email to inmygrow@gmail.com. I want to thank all the artists who let me use their music to put the show together. All right, brothers and sisters, I'm going to go ahead and get the hell out of here. Now, you know I love you all very much. And remember to always grow, learn, and teach.